Dr. Jazz.
Thanks for taking the time. I really
Dr.
appreciate it.
Oh no, man!
Uh,
Thank you, for having me. I've been watching some of your interviews, with some of the other guys that I know.
yeah,
So
yeah, I
pretty
love doing
interesting
this.
stuff. Yeah,
I love doing this. It's just like,
yeah,
I've been listening to you guys, and I played with so many of the musicians, and it's just so nice to, when you're
right, right.
on tour, you never ask someone like, so, how was it when you, I don't know, played with Braxton or with whoever, or, or, and it's just like, then it's really nice to hear
Right. Yeah.
the
Yeah. It's
stories.
good to have some inside, information.
Yeah, and I'm
So
really,
a lot of the times it's not like what we think.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm quite a geek, I read these encyclopedias and
Oh, I
I
do the
like them.
same thing too. So
Ah, okay.
don't feel bad.
Okay. It's like this investigating a little bit each one of you,
Right.
so I
Right.
like that. But I will just jump in. I listened today to El Arte del Bolero with Miguel, and
Hmm.
it's such a beautiful. I love duos, saxophone and piano. It's such a nice, such a nice thing, intimate, and
Right.
you and Miguel
Right.
seem to be like amazing. Well, it start the saxophone, the sound is beautiful. But
Hmm.
what's the story behind this project? Actually, how did you guys come up with doing just a duo one? I mean, I know you did like 10 recordings before with Miguel, but how did this one happen?
Well, it was actually Miguel's idea. We
Oh,
were supposed to do like a concert for this place in Houston.
oh,
And so we went into the Jazz Gallery in New York and to record. It was going to be, like an online concert.
yeah.
So everything was there already and it was sounding good, and we had the lights and all the microphones and everything. So, Miguel suggested just to like do like a recording just to put it up on YouTube and just like maybe
Oh,
make
okay.
some money, but it was something that it was for fun. And so, we just did the whole concert. And it happened, it was kind of like one
Yeah, peace.
set,
Yeah.
without any, like redos or anything. And it was just fun. We didn't rehearse for it.
Oh,
We just had a
really?
conversation.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
man.
we
That's
just we
beautiful.
just had a conversation on the phone. Okay, maybe we play this piece and we do it in this key, and then maybe we'll do this, and that's all it was.
Oh,
And we just agreed on what pieces we were gonna play, and most of the material, well, not most, all of the material is music that we both grew up listening to.
sure.
It's like that either our parents were listening to it or you listen to it on the street, and we were very familiar with the material.
Yeah, I wanted to
And
ask you that too.
it's also familiar. It's also material that speaks to him and also to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was actually really fun to do.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds so beautiful. It's like you said, it's like having an interaction between you two guys. Mostly you've done, group settings, which I love, but it's so nice to hear you in this intimate. It's completely different. I think you
Yeah.
play complete. Miguel plays completely different. I mean, you too, of course, because it's a duo. So
Yeah, I think like one of the things that this recording captured is that spirit of like an after after hour joint,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
like after you play the main concert and then maybe they're cleaning the place and then you're just playing for fun.
yeah,
And I think that's what actually a lot of people kind of like, why people like that recording a lot. It's just because it feels very relaxed.
yeah,
It's something that you can just put it on and maybe sit down and listen to it, or you can just put it on in the background and
Yeah,
maybe have dinner and just like have some couple of like some wine or something, or
yeah,
you can have it in your office, while you're doing your work. So that's one of those things that people like about it.
yeah.
I think, yeah.
No, no, it's beautiful. I mean, did you guys consider of doing like a duo with original music also?
I think like I mean throughout the years we have done some recording. No, not some recordings, some concerts too.
Concerts, yeah.
And I think at some point we were talking about like maybe we should do a duo recording of
Yeah.
original music. But it never came to fruition. Just because sometimes I'm really busy
Oh,
doing
sure.
some of the stuff or he's busy. So and then when we actually play together is with the quartet, with Miguel's quartet.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
um yeah, but yeah, we throughout the years there have been like talks about doing something like that. Just do them. So
yeah. It's so nice. Yeah. Is the
yeah.
quartet still alive, kind of, or?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
pretty
really?
much. We have some dates coming up, and we have a new recording that is coming out in August.
Oh man, fantastic.
Yeah, we just did it at the beginning of this year,
Oh,
and we're gonna play at the Teatro Bellas Artes in Puerto Rico, which is
oh,
one of the biggest theaters down there. And then we're playing at the Village Vanguard
oh
when
man,
the record
fantastic.
comes out. Yeah, that's in sometime in August of this year.
Wow,
And
fantastic.
yeah, that quartet has been around for at least with Hans, the bass player, and myself for about I think like 22 years.
Yeah, I checked today. I have looking forward to home, and it's 2001, I think, or
Y-
2002.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like I think the first gigs that we did was in September of 2000.
Wow.
And the drum chair has changed a little bit. I
Yeah.
think originally it was Adam Cruz. Then after that, it was Antonio
Antonio.
Sanchez,
Yeah.
and then for the last 15 or 17 years has been Henry Cole.
Yeah.
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 So
It's incredible. I love this music. I listened to Looking Forward today, and it's just like, man, of course, there's many guests there, Monder and Diego Urcola and some others, but like,
yeah,
just just like the music, it's you put it on, it's wow, so intense. I love
yeah.
this
I
the
haven't I
sound.
haven't listened to that in a while, but recently there was a student that wanted to play one of those
Oh,
songs.
really? Oh,
So I went back and I listened to it, and I was like, "Oh wow, this that actually sounds really good." And
yeah,
he wanted me to explain some of the how I was playing some of the stuff that is kind of tricky. So I had to actually go back and look at the chart, and I remember a lot of it. So I
yeah.
explained I explained it to him. He was pretty happy about it.
It still sounds really fresh. Sometimes it can be like you put on a record from, I don't know, 30 or 40 years ago, and some records can be like really dated. Well, this one you put on, it's like, wow, okay, it's really modern, and that's quite rare, to have that still going on, and I like that about that one. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
a lot of people like that, about that recording. And
Yeah,
a lot of those recordings, that I'm on, people say, "Oh man, how old is this recording?" I said, "Well, it's like 20 years old, but they actually like and they say, "Man, that sounds like you recorded it like yesterday."
yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah. When did you start playing with Miguel, by the way? When was the first time you guys?
Um, I believe it was around that time, maybe around sometime in 2000 or maybe 1999.
Okay.
We started just playing, for fun. We used to get together in Hans Glawischnig's apartment.
Yeah.
Um, Hans and I, we went to the Manhattan School of Music together.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and that's where I met Hans when I first came to New York in 1993. And then ever since we've been playing together, and we used to have a trio with Danny Wise on drums.
Mm.
And
Oh man.
after Hans and I, yeah, after we graduated from Manhattan School of Music, we kept playing. Hans used to live around the corner of the Manhattan School of Music, and then Danny Wise was also at MSM at that
Yeah.
time. That's how the connection came. So Hans and I, we graduated. Um, Danny was still in school, and then Miguel came into school, and
Ah,
that's
okay.
how Danny got in touch with with Miguel.
Miguel. Yeah.
And then, when we used to play trio with Danny, he, kept saying, "Oh man, you got to check out this guy Miguel. You got to check out Miguel." And I was like, "Man, who's this guy Miguel?" And I thought it was just some Latin guy that, he's just gonna play some little salsa. And I didn't pay too much attention. I was like, "Oh man, I'm like, yeah, all right." So then there was one day that he actually came, Miguel. And we were like, "Okay, let's start playing." So I forget what we played. And from the first note, I would say, I remember Hans had a brand new upright piano. It was very shiny.
Yeah.
And then I could see Miguel was standing right behind me, so I could see him, through the reflection of the piano. So I'm like playing, I'm looking, and I say, "Man, this guy sounds really good." And then at some point, I just had to like turn around and say, "Man, this guy's killing." And then from then on, we just kept playing.
Yeah.
And I think because we have a lot of the same background, even though we go about things a little bit different, but we have the same background, and I think we look for the same things in music.
Hmm.
So that kind of like brought us together. Also with Hans. Even
Yeah.
though Hans doesn't have a background, like Miguel and
Yeah, sure.
stuff, we like a lot of the same music. So that actually brought that group together.
Mm. Yeah, you can feel that. I mean, it's such a nice chemistry you guys have. It's beautiful to hear that. So
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. Yeah. But you mentioned you have the same background, and but you're from Venezuela, right? And
Yes.
like I have absolutely no idea about the jazz scene in Venezuela. But how did you get in touch in jazz? Like I would say like mid '80s or late '80s. Like what
Well,
were the records, or how did you get in touch with jazz? Like,
well, Venezuela at that time, in the 70s and 80s, and at the beginning of the 90s, was a very different country.
mm,
Financially, it was doing really well. So a lot of musicians used to go down there, to play.
oh really? Oh, wow.
Yes, that was like an obligated stop. Like everybody that was going to South America will, at some point stop in Venezuela. I remember like from people telling me that people like Elvin Jones went down there and Bill
Wow.
Evans. My dad saw Louis Armstrong,
Oh, wow.
like down
Really?
there, people like that. They
I didn't
they
know that.
all used to come down there. And I remember one of my dad's favorite concerts that he listened to, that he went to see, was Cannonball Adderley's quintet with George
Wow,
Duke on piano.
man.
This must have been 1974. I mean, I was like three, but this must have been like 74, 75, like around the time that, when he died, 70, like, yeah, 73, 74, something
Yeah.
like that. And, and not only jazz musicians used to go down there. There were a lot of like classical musicians that used to go down there. And we are right next door to Brazil.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of Brazilian musicians who used to go down there. And also, they used to live there, because that's the thing, that because the country was doing really well, it was attracting a lot of people from everywhere.
Mm,
And my dad, he's a jazz fan. He's not a musician, but he listens to a lot of jazz. So I grew up listening to like Bud Powell and Oscar Peterson. Those are two of the first people that I actually started listening to, especially Oscar Peterson. To this
really?
day, I
Wow.
listen to him all the time.
Really? Oh, wow.
And at the beginning, I didn't like it, because I didn't know what was happening. I was like, man, like, what is that music? That sounds funny. But then when I actually started taking lessons, and um, my brain and my ear began to open, towards some other styles, I was like, wow, this is actually really, really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I grew up around music also. My dad had, like, I mean, he still has it, like a big record collection that you can find anything in there. You can find classical music or Venezuelan music or Afro-Cuban music, anything. It
Yeah.
was in there. Then my brother also had a big, record collection, mostly salsa music, or all of it was salsa music.
Yeah.
And then my sister was she was more into like Earth, Wind and Fire, Michael
Okay. Wow. Well, cool.
Jackson, that kind of stuff. So every time in my house, it was like a cacophony of like all kind. If you were in my sister's room, she was like blasting the Bee Gees, and then my brother would be blasting like Eddie Palmieri, you know,
How cool.
and then my dad would be listening to like Bad Powell, you know, somewhere in the living room. So yeah,
Man,
it was actually really fun, you know.
oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah.
And I was also very lucky to have a teacher in Venezuela. My first piano teacher. He's actually still alive, and he's from Austria,
Really? Oh,
from
wow.
Vienna.
Wow.
He came to Venezuela. Yeah, he came to Venezuela in the late 50s, I think, like 1956, 57, and he just liked it down there. You know, he liked the weather. He said that that was the first time that he actually saw the ocean. And the weather down in Venezuela is actually really nice. You know,
Oh,
it
sure.
hasn't really changed too much. You know,
Yeah.
so he loved it and he stayed there. You know, and he actually was very instrumental. You know, in actually getting myself um, to have an open mind towards music. You know,
Mm,
if I have one big lesson that I got from him, you know, besides all the technical stuff and all
sure.
the, you know, like you know, all that stuff, all the classical music and all the stuff that I learned from him, the biggest lesson was just to keep an open mind towards music in general and treat music as music. You know,
Yeah.
just like not looking at like kind of like divisions. Okay, this is this, this is this, this is this. It's just music, and then like when you think about it that way, it actually makes it like you actually learn it faster,
Yeah.
because you don't have that trauma. It's like, oh man, I'm not from here, so I'm not gonna be able to learn this style. You just have to be, as anything, if you want to learn something, you just have to be exposed to it as much
Yeah.
as you can. And if you like it, then you're gonna kind of like gravitate towards that, and you're gonna gravitate towards the musician that play that kind of music. Then you're gonna also learn about the culture about that music, because it's not only the music. A lot of the times you figure out stuff about the music when you actually learn about the culture.
Yeah.
you
Definitely. Yeah.
haven't
Sure.
played you haven't played one note, but then you go and you speak to people, you see like what they have gone through. You eat the foods that they eat, and then when you go back and you play, it's like, oh, okay, that's why it sounds like that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I actually try to do, or not that I try to do, I've been kind of like set to act this way, is just to like when you're trying to learn some of the style of music, just go to the roots, and learn the whole history about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when was the moment that you decided in this journey that you want to become a jazz player? I mean,
Oh
what?
well, I wanted to. I figured that out pretty early in my life.
Really?
That I wanted to be a musician.
Mm,
I don't know, for some reason I always had an attraction towards musical instruments. Like every time that I saw anything that, yeah, I mean, it was shiny. If I saw like a cymbal or something, it's like, oh wow,
sure.
look. And I also thought that musicians were kind of cool. That like they belong to like a different thing. Like they,
Yeah.
they were like kind of crazy a little bit, and then their minds were like somewhere else. Like, oh man, no, that's such and such. And I also liked music, since I was very young. I remember being like, I don't know, like maybe like 5 or 6, and there was a recording by a salsa group in Venezuela named Dimensión Latina. And this orchestra, they released a recording. Yeah, it was actually 1976, so I was 5. And I made my dad buy the record, and I used to carry the record with me, like
Oh,
everywhere
cool.
that I went. And I remember my dad said, "No, don't bring the record, because if we were gonna go to the market, I wanted to bring the record with me. So it's just like something, I don't know, like kind of like like it seems fun to me, like funny to me right now. Because it had the pictures. That's the thing, with the
Yeah.
recordings.
That was
So it
beautiful.
had the
Yeah.
pictures of the whole orchestra, like really big. So I thought they were my friends. So, oh no, let's go to the market. So
That's so cool.
And I like the whole recording. I mean, to this day, I listen to that recording. Not every now and then. I listen to the whole thing because I like all the songs.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, yeah. I love these moments when you're a kid, you still remember those records. The first
Right.
ones, kind of,
Right.
it's so cool. Even if you put them on later, it's like, man, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. And also, I
It's
try
somewhere
to
there.
remember that feeling that
Yeah,
yeah, I try to remember that feeling that I had when I was a kid listening to music. When I didn't have all these other things in your brain that kind of like hinder your experience.
yeah.
Like listening to it. Like when I was a kid, I was just listening to it and just enjoying it. Like right now, I'll be like automatically
That's
analyzing
me too,
what's
man. That's
happening.
so heavy. I hate that.
And
I hate
it's like,
that.
oh man, like he's a little bit out of tune. Oh no, man, he's doing this. Oh man, that hit wasn't like on, like together.
Yep.
But when I was a kid, man, I used to have so
Yeah.
much fun. Just listening to music. It didn't matter if it was, out of tune or anything. It either like touches your heart or it doesn't.
Yeah.
So sometimes I try to do that. Even when I play, I try to get out of my head a little bit. You say, well, this note is not supposed to go there, but it kind of sounds good to me. So I'm just gonna play it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
That's
when
that's
you
so
do it
cool.
like that, you kind of make it work.
Yeah. No,
It
that's
could be
so
like a
important. That's so important what
yeah,
you're saying. Yeah.
yeah. It could be a total mistake, but then if you actually like mean it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And,
it,
uh, and
it's
and other
true.
musicians on the audience, they realize that they pay attention to that, because sometimes you see the musicians, they look like, oh, like as if I did something really great, but I remember like being like, oh man, like I'm gonna play this note that it's not supposed to go there, but let me see, because I'm hearing it, so
Yeah.
boom, it's like, and then people look like, oh wow, that's great. I'm like, all right, cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Man, what you're saying now, I wish you could do that, like every time, you listen to a tune, I'm like, okay, oh, it's in seven. Okay, he's doing that harmonically.
right,
And,
right.
like normal people, non-musicians, they're in the audience, you go to a concert, it's like, they seem to, like you said, try to enjoy the music in a way. I mean, I try too, but subconsciously,
Right,
you're
right.
like, oh, what is the drummer doing? He's going there, and like, and
Yeah. And
that's
I think that's something that, like when you become a professional musician, you kind of like it's something that it happens naturally. You go into this analytical mind, just because you have to, because when
yeah,
you are performing, you gotta kind of like keep track of everything that is happening. You gotta know what the drummer is doing, what this guy is doing, so that you can actually function.
yeah,
But then when you're actually listening to music, it's a you should kind of like leave that mind, to the side and then just enjoy the music.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. With jazz, I have this problem. If I put on some pop music or some heavy metal or whatever, I don't analyze it. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, But immediately when it comes to jazz or improvised, I'm like, okay, what's happening? My mind completely goes into this
Yeah.
analytical mode. But
Yeah.
yeah. But I wanted to ask you, Luis, like, coming from Venezuela to New York, what was that decision based on? And I know you went to study to Manhattan School of Music, but
Mm.
how did you decide to do that? And what was your first experience, coming from Venezuela to New York in the early 90s, which was blooming back then, I think.
Yeah, well, by the time that I was 18, like just like going back a little bit, I got a gig in like the main jazz club in Caracas,
Oh,
just by
wow.
chance. And we used to play from Monday to Saturdays from 9:30 to
Wow, man.
3:30.
Okay.
Yeah, to 3:30 a.m. So I was doing that, and then because that was like the main club, a lot of the musicians used to go down there and hang out and listen. So I started picking up other gigs, not only jazz. I was playing like uh, with one of the most famous pop singers down there, and also just doing all kinds of like Latin jazz gigs, and straight ahead gigs, and even Dixieland. Sometimes I used
Wow.
to like play Dixieland and that kind of stuff, but a lot of Brazilian music. So but at some point it became kind of like, all right, so what else am I gonna do? I'm doing all these gigs, so where am I gonna go from here? And I always had in my mind like this idea, like it was a little bit of more of like a romanticized idea of New York, what it would be, romanticized, no, romanticized,
Romantic, yeah,
romanticized the
yeah,
idea
yeah,
of New York, like, oh yeah, you get to New York and it's gonna be all these musicians and it's great. And then when when I used to listen to recordings, I used to, like a geek, I used to read all the liner notes, and
yeah,
then you see the studio that I was recorded, and then it would say New York City recorder, in New Jersey, the bandleader studio recorded in New York City, So I'm like, oh wow, New York City. So at some point I would just say, man, like I actually would like to study in New York so that I can kind of have an anchor, but at the same time learn how to, speak English and also be a part of the community, because just coming as a musician,
yeah,
I thought it was gonna be really hard, just because it's like, man, like nobody knows you, and then it's like, it's not like, nah, 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 But if you come to school, you're getting an education,
yeah,
and my initial idea really was just to actually come here, go to school, maybe do my master's, and then be here for like a few years, and then maybe like either go back and forth between Venezuela and New York, or just go back to Venezuela, because that's the other thing, that as I was saying, like the country was doing really well,
yeah,
so musicians didn't really have the necessity to like leave. Unlike now, a lot of like the really good musicians, or like people in general, like, it doesn't have to be like just musicians in general, they just leave, because
mm,
there's no, I don't really see a future down there, too much. But back then, like in the 80s and 70s, musicians used to come here, get an education, and then just go down there, and they live pretty comfortable down there.
yeah.
Plus, you have your whole family, and
Oh, sure, yeah,
so my idea was just that, maybe like like I just go back, and then I keep coming to New York. I just come and stay like 3 months, and then go back, and then just, but they didn't really work out that way. So I ended up just staying here. It's been 29 years,
man,
and
wow,
and now my mind is more like, this is kind of like home for me,
sure,
even when I go down there, like at the beginning, last time that I went to Venezuela, it kind of feels a little bit foreign, because I haven't been there in so long. Even though, like after like a few weeks, I kind of get, you know,
yeah, the flow,
in the frame of mind, it's like,
yeah,
oh, okay, cool. I get all my slang back, or like I start understanding all the new slang, because the way I speak, in Spanish is with especially when I speak to Venezuelans, is the old slang that I used to know, from like the 80s. It kind of like it stayed there, but it's cool,
that's
So
amazing.
that changed to New York. It wasn't that hard actually, because I was so excited to be here. So finally, when I came, I was like, wow, this is great, Even though it was a little bit overwhelming, but I was welcoming that feeling of being overwhelmed, and
Yeah,
yeah, being able to like go down to like Sweet Basil and see McCoy Tyner, who was one of the pianists that I was really into at that time, or like go see Kenny Kirkland, or somebody like that,
yeah.
or like Magru Miller.
Oh man,
So
yeah, those guys
yeah,
for.
those two were the two guys that I mainly came looking for, like Magru Miller and Kenny Kirkland.
Yeah, I love those two guys. I mean, incredible, incredible players.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So like that change wasn't that you know it wasn't that hard for me. And with the English, I didn't really quite speak English when I came here. And it's funny, I actually learned from watching a lot of TV. I
sure.
used to watch reruns of the Cosby Show, and
Yeah,
because I used to watch the Cosby Show in Spanish, I knew the dialogue. I know what they were talking about. So then when I finally, like listened to it in English, I knew what they were talking about, even though I couldn't really understand, the pronunciation.
yeah,
Um, but I kind of knew it's like, oh wow, and then you start like kind of figuring out, and then being here and then listening to English all the time, you kind of like figure out things really fast. And I hated the fact that just being somewhere where you cannot really speak the language, when like you go out and then you have this fear of like somebody's gonna talk to you,
Yeah,
ask for directions, and then you're not gonna know. Like I didn't really like that feeling.
yeah,
So I
definitely.
learned as fast as I could, which I think it was pretty fast.
Yeah, otherwise it would have been impossible, I mean, to do it. So
Yeah, so I
yeah,
just jumped into the culture and then, just okay,
that's
cool,
amazing.
I'm here.
Yeah. What were
Yeah,
the first gigs? I mean, I listened to the record by John Benitez, Descarga in New York, which is
right.
killing. He John is playing on the bass like the heads, everything is just killing. And is this one of the first records you did actually when you were there, or what was happening like late 90s?
No, I
Or
had done like a few recordings, a bunch of recordings before that.
oh, okay,
I used to play with this band called Timbalaye, who was like a pretty progressive Latin jazz band, and we did some recordings like I think like around '98.
oh really?
And
Okay,
I have done some recordings, like around 94, 95. And back in Venezuela I had done a bunch,
oh sure, yeah.
like right before I came, I did, I recorded a lot. But at the beginning, just because I was an international student, so I was taking a lot of credits. At some point I was taking like either 19 or 20 credits. So
Mm,
I was pretty, busy with school. So those first years I was just basically just like,
focused on that, yeah,
focus on that, yeah.
yeah.
But then at some point, like I did some recordings with like some friends uh, from from the Manhattan School of Music. I remember. I can't really remember the exact year, but I believe it was like around '95. I will have to look at
I read already.
at
Okay,
the recordings. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. There are a bunch of recordings. That at some point I'm gonna put all my discography like together.
Yeah, come on, you should do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I looked at the recordings I have with you or of you at home, and that's why I was like, okay, I have this one. That's the first one starting, and
Yeah, I mean,
but
there's a gap. I have a lot of recordings that were done between '88 and '93 or '94. Then there is a gap between '94 to about 1998.
yeah,
Those four
exactly.
years, I
Yeah,
didn't really record that much. And then it starts again like around '98. Then from the 2000s to now,
yeah. Oh,
just
then it's like,
making,
man,
yeah, then there's a lot of
that's
recordings.
a lot of amazing music you did. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how did your connection with Ravi begin? I mean, because he must have been one of the first kind of bigger guys, if I put it like that, or like
Mhm.
bigger groups that you got into. Like, how did you start playing with him?
Well, I think the way I remember it was we met in John Benitez recording, like the
Yeah,
recording Descarga in New York. I think like Robbie plays there. That
yeah,
was
yeah,
the first time that I met him, and like he played on a couple of tunes. And then around the same time I was doing another gig, and I think like Robbie might have been looking for a pianist. Like
mm,
he always had these bands where he was matching different people.
yeah,
Like maybe at that point he didn't really have like a steady band. And I remember his manager came to one of the gigs that I was doing just by chance, and she was like, "Oh man," she called Ravi. I was like, "Man, you gotta like hear this guy." I think she might have put the phone, like when I was taking a solo.
mm.
I believe that she did that. I don't know, maybe
That,
not.
that sounds cool. I mean, let's say she did. Come on.
Yeah, so I think but then I had met Ravi already, so we kind of I started like on and off. I was like do one gig, and then some other people were doing some other gigs. So but then at some point like around 2003, I think that's when it kind of like became more like steady.
Yeah,
When he settled with Drew Gress
yeah, I love that.
and
Yeah,
Aegis Strickland. But before I had done some gigs with maybe like Aegis Strickland and Darryl Hall on bass and Gregor Marais.
yeah.
and Ravi. That was the quintet. I think there are some videos of like some tours that we did. I think at some point it was like maybe Jefferson Watts,
Mhm. Yeah,
and James Genus, Ben Perowski.
yeah,
Like just
killing
I
players.
remember the
Yeah.
band changing a lot at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then at some point it settled for like a few years, for like 7 or 8 years with Drew Gress and Aegis Strickland.
Yeah.
And we did 3 recordings around that time.
Yeah, it's amazing music. It's like really burning. I love those records. Like really cool stuff you guys did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because around the time that I started playing with Ravi, I think the month before I started playing with Roberto, who was one of my idols.
Oh wow, really? I didn't.
Yeah, and I think like a couple of months before, I was playing with John Patitucci. We did some gigs that year.
Wow.
So yeah, for me it was like, oh man, like from
It was
John
like,
Patitucci, then to Ray
yeah,
Barreto, then to Ravi Coltrane. And said, wow, yeah, yeah, everything happened like in a very short period of time.
yeah,
And then at the same time, I was playing with
amazing.
Giovanni Terry, who's a saxophone player.
Yeah,
I
I
was
love
playing
him.
with
Yeah, he's
Miguel.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was playing with Miguel. I was playing with Brian Lynch. I was playing with John Benitez, and some other people. There were like 8 or 9 bands. But
Oh
some of these
man.
guys they didn't have they weren't working a lot.
Yeah,
So it kind of worked out. But I
yeah,
was always busy, and then at some point Ravi started getting really busy. So I started you know like I had to I had to quit some of the bands, and then from
sure.
some other bands I kind of got fired, because I was never there. So it's like, well, you can't be everywhere.
Oh sure, man. Yeah,
Yeah. So at some point they stop calling you. It's like, if you say no, I can't make the gig. No, I can't make the gig. I can't. They find somebody else that can make the gig, and then which
yeah,
is cool.
yeah, yeah,
I'm not
sure.
I'm not here to be like, oh no man, I gotta have all the gigs. But if people call me and I'm available, I'm gonna do the gig.
Oh sure, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember like there was one guy one time that he was mad at me. It was another pianist because I had all these gigs. So he said, "Man, but what do you want me to do? You want me to say no when they call me?
Oh sure, man. Go
Like I'm sure if they were calling you, you would say yes. But the guy was really mad at me, like for no reason. And this was a guy that I used to look up to.
Oh
I'm not gonna
man.
mention his name,
No,
but
no, sure.
I used to look up to this guy. It's like I thought he was like really cool. And when I first met him, he was like really weird, man. It's like, all right, well, I guess that's one of the things about being in New York. You're gonna run into that kind of people.
Oh sure, yeah, definitely.
But but it's funny because also it's not like I've been calling people to like give me the gig. Because I never had that personality to be like, um,
Pushing
just
yourself, kind of.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
never done that, and probably I should have. I could probably be a lot more famous right now.
Oh
Not
come
that I'm
on.
famous, you know. But it never really sat right to me, to be calling people or to be trying to go to people's gig to sit in.
Yeah.
Like I never really felt comfortable, doing that. Like I sit in if people ask me.
Oh
And a
sure.
lot of
Yeah.
the times I say no. I'm like, nah, man, and then throughout the years of knowing the people and know that like if I go to the gig they're gonna ask me. I'm like, all right, well,
Sure.
like I'll sit in. But I actually don't like sitting in too much because I always feel like I'm disrupting the flow of the gig. Unless it's a jam session, then it's okay.
That's different. Yeah.
But I would never go to like the Vanguard and ask anybody to sit in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah, that's
yeah.
really
It's
weird to me. Even if it's a friend of mine that I know that it'll be cool, that I feel like, man, like these guys have been rehearsing.
yeah.
They have a band. They have a sound. Just be respectful. Just
Yeah.
sit there and like listen. You don't have to, just like come and show. Okay, this is me. I'm gonna do my thing. And then right after you play, then you leave. You don't hang out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. That's something. That's something that is weird to me.
No, no, I agree. To focus point and awareness, like these first records, kind of you've done, like,
Right.
w- how did those happen? Like, when did you base the decision? Okay, now I'm gonna do a record as a band leader and start leading your own groups in New York. How did that story begin?
Yeah, well, I was offered to do a recording like pretty early, in my career, I guess. Like I must have been like 20 or 21
Oh wow. Or-
in Venezuela. But it's funny because like the producer, he wanted kind of like to like dictate what was gonna happen musically and even the instrumentation. And he wanted me to do like, yeah, I want you to do a duo, piano and bongos. I'm like, nah, man, I'm not doing that. No, probably now I would do it because I would try to
Oh
find a
sure,
different
yeah.
concept. But at the beginning, he just wanted me to do like some Latin stuff, and I'm like, nah, man, no, 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 because I didn't want to be kind of like boxed into
Yeah.
a definite category, like okay, he's a Latin musician, even
Yes,
though
yeah.
to
Yeah.
this day he has kind of like it doesn't happen as much, but still, you find some people that, oh, Luis Perdomo, and right away they're, oh, you're gonna play salsa, right? It's
Yeah, I
like,
hate
no,
that. Yeah, but they don't know your music, obviously. I mean, then
exactly,
it's
yeah.
like yeah.
And it's funny because it's something that happens a lot to like South American musicians.
Yeah.
Anybody that has a Hispanic name,
Yeah.
like to me, I always get that I'm a conga player. It's like, no, why am I gonna be a conga player? And why do I have to play salsa?
Shit.
So it's really fun because it doesn't happen to any other musicians. I don't think. I mean, maybe it does, but I don't think they go to like Enrico Pieranunzi or somebody like
Yeah,
that and be like, "Oh, so you're gonna play tarantella, right?" It's like, no,
exactly.
he's not gonna play tarantella.
Exactly.
That. So this guy, this producer, he wanted me to play, do all this Latin stuff, and I'm like, nah, man, I don't want to do that. And throughout the years, that kind of like kept happening, like when people, it's like, oh yeah, so you're gonna use congas, right? So no, I'm not gonna use congas. So I kept saying no and no and no and no until Ravi Coltrane, who had he had a label at the time.
Okay, yeah.
He was the first one that told me, he's like, man, just do a record and do whatever you want. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, now I'm gonna do it. And I think it might have been his suggestion just to like just do the recording, and then he gave me like total, being a musician
Freedom, yeah.
himself,
Yeah.
he gave me the total freedom. He said, do whatever you want, pick whoever you want to pick, and like for as far as the musicians, and just yeah, let's just do a record.
Yeah.
And that's when I finally decided, it's like, okay, now is the right time, to do something. And then same thing happened with like the recording awareness.
Yeah, I love that one. How did you decide for, by the way, for this concept of two rhythm sections and like, Henry Grimes, like quite and Nasheed. I mean, Nasheed kind of makes sense, but like Henry Grimes, like how did you stumble upon him?
Yeah, what I wanted is like the concept that I have for that recording in terms of the musicians was that like I wanted a drummer that didn't sound like two drummers. I wanted
Yeah.
somebody who could sound like the same person with four arms or something. And I knew that those guys, Nasheed and
Oh,
Eric,
sure.
that's how they played because they grew up playing together. So I kind of wanted that. Like I remember at some point some guy was like, "Man, so what's the point of that? Like if you had two drummers, you want to have the two personalities, but no, like I wanted like somebody like a superhuman drummer.
Octa drummer kind of.
Yeah, something like that. That sounded like the same person, but like
Yeah.
it's like how is he doing that? So that was the concept behind the drums. Um, with Hans, like I knew that he has a
Sure.
very open mind like myself, so he can go either way. He can play straight ahead, or he can play um like more avant-garde, or he can
Open.
play
Yeah.
Latin, or he can go like whatever the current is going, he goes with that. And then Henry, I just wanted to do his thing. Henry was gonna be floating on top of all that, just doing his thing. And I've been listening to Henry for a long time, since the first time that I heard Cecil Taylor. I might have been
Oh,
like 15,
wow, man.
and my
Yeah.
teacher in Venezuela, he gave me a recording of Cecil Taylor. He said, "Man, like check this out." And I remember from the first time that I remember the record was Conquistador.
Yeah, sure. I love that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and when I heard that, I was just like, "Wow, this is
Yeah.
great!" Because like I didn't really know exactly what was happening, but I understood that music, I think, a little bit like faster than maybe Fats Waller.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
it's
Yeah,
funny because it seems like because like Fats Waller, like all the stuff that he's doing is so intricate and fast that I had to have a little bit more of knowledge,
yeah,
just to like be able to really appreciate that. But with Cecil Taylor, like actually was like attracted to the energy. I didn't necessarily have to know what was happening, but you're like there's that energy of that
yeah,
type of music that I felt like like really attracted to that. Especially the way they do it, that there is a lot of attention and release and tension. They create all this tension, and then this,
yeah.
it's like,
It's
oh,
beautiful.
okay,
Yeah,
you can breathe, and then so it was so great. And then eventually I realized, like that's also very intricate, what he's
yeah,
doing. I analyzed that piece, and what what used to sound to me like he's just like playing like really crazy. A lot of times he's hitting the same notes, so there are like actually like phrases and stuff that he's doing the same
yeah,
way, and it's really hard to like play that way and hit the same notes all the time. So I just like, oh wow. And then I found out about more about his concept and all the rhythmic cells
yeah,
that he used to give to people. And then so I think I lost my train of thought. Like,
yeah. We were just talking about why Henry for that record.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And then Henry's on that recording.
yeah,
So
amazing.
so I was just like, oh man, Henry Grimes, and then the other guys is Alan Silva.
Yeah,
So and I don't know, for some reason I also like bass a lot. I don't know why. Like
oh man, yeah. It's like,
I like that sound.
yeah,
I mean, my wife is a bass player, and so sometimes I just go and like I like to just say strum the bass. How sometimes people have like a little bell, like a
yeah,
bass bell, and then they go ding. I do that with the bass. I just go. It's like you know.
it's something
Um,
mighty about it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And especially bass players like that,
yeah.
like Henry Grimes, like Alan Silva,
Really
Barry
raw. Yeah,
Phillips. Yeah, like I like those that type of bass players, and also my teacher in Venezuela, his name is Jerry Whale.
hmm,
By the way, I gotta mention his name. Uh, well, truly, his name is Gerhard Wilhelm. You know, but
yeah, yeah. Man, I see.
he changed that to Jerry Whale. It's easier in Spanish.
Yeah.
Um, he also gave me a recording. I remember it was like a three record live recording, and there was one track that used to last. I think like the whole side, and it was by this group called the Trio,
Hmm.
like John Sermon, Barry Phillips, and the drummer like Stu Martin.
Stu Martin.
Was Stu
Okay. Yeah.
Martin, Barry Phillips, and John Sermon. Man, that was so great. I used to listen to that all the time
Really?
and
Wow.
try to
Interesting.
play along with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I used to play that and then just try to play piano like Cecil Taylor, like. So it was so much fun, like trying to do that. So that was the concept behind that recording.
And
And then in terms of the music,
yeah,
there's there in that recording awareness, there are some pieces that are like trio
yeah,
that are
yeah,
more like
yeah,
rhythmic. But then for the stuff with Henry Grimes, I didn't want to write too much stuff. Like I kind of wanted him to be free to do his thing,
yeah,
and that's the reason why he was there. It's just like Henry, like whatever you hear, that's what it is.
yeah,
So I created more like not sketches, but the music was not so much written out. It was just more like the situation. It's
yeah.
like, okay, let's make this happen. And in my head, I was hearing, the one superhuman drummer, one bass that could go with me
Yeah.
or not. Like if I chose to play time, then he would go with me playing time. If I chose to play more open, that was Hans. And then Henry, I would just take inspiration
Yeah.
from whatever he was doing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
and I
beautiful
thought
one.
it,
I love that one. It's such a
yeah,
nice
and
record.
I thought it came out really nice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
how did you write music for? I mean, it starts with a Nomads, which is like 7/4, I think. And
Yeah, I think
I wanted
so.
to ask you about, like, when you write, a lot of your music is in odd meters. I mean, and when you play it, it feels so natural. I mean, also with Ravi, lots of changing of structures. And
Right.
how did you get used to playing that
Yeah.
stuff, and especially writing, like, in
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that way all the time. It was really hard for me to like play. I remember like the first time that I was trying to play Take Five and trying to improvise on that. Man, that was
yeah,
really hard. But also I think of that's like odd meter stuff. Like I don't really think of it as being odd. I just think it's just music because
yeah, sure.
I remember like being somewhere in Europe, in I think it's in Slovenia, I think might have been. No,
Probably
in
Macedonia
Serbia.
or Serbia
In
or something.
Serbia. And I remember there was I always tell this story to like my students. And like there was a guy that, like he came backstage and he was like, yeah, no, I'm not a professional pianist, but I just say, I just I'm a dentist, but I play piano by ear. And he gave me his CD. Man, I listened to that CD and he was playing like some stuff that was like, like in 7 and 5 and odd meters. And it sounded so natural. And it sounded to me like he wasn't really trying to be like so technical with it.
Yeah,
He was just playing melodies and just playing like, just playing. And it was like, for me, it was like, wow, I try to practice this stuff so much and try to like figure out, like mathematically what's
yeah,
gonna happen, as opposed to just say, man, just play. I mean, you gotta do the math, in order to be able to like know where the one is. But at some point, you gotta kind of like forget about all that stuff and then just play,
yeah,
and try to feel it more, and try to find more like I call it the skeleton, like something that I can actually sing, like a rhythmic cell that I can sing in my head that is not counting,
yeah, yeah,
like that kind of stuff. And then, that's the way I kind of like play, like try to approach like odd meters. And also a lot of the times, and this is something that I got from Roland Hanna, when I used to be his student.
mm,
He used to like work really hard in the gray areas that I had. Like if I was playing something really well, he was like, "Oh yeah, you sound good playing that. Don't play it anymore.
that's
Let's
good.
play
Yeah,
let's play
yeah,
the stuff that you cannot play." So something that I got from him is like, and also from my other teacher, Harold Danko,
yeah,
is just work on the stuff that you cannot really do. And then I started kind of like writing tunes with stuff that was hard for me, you know, just because, I would be playing a song, but
yeah,
at the same time, I would kind of be like practicing and getting better at it. And also, just because of my own laziness, it's not like I want to do the exercises and then play a song. Like I just wanted to combine it so I can be done faster. So I started like writing music with stuff that it was hard for me at the time.
yeah. That's so smart. Yeah,
Like, and then, yeah, so I would be just playing the song and then working on stuff. It's like, so if I got to like a part of the song that was really hard, I would just isolate the problem and work on that and then go back and play the song.
yeah.
And, that's kind of how it was. And then also playing with Ravi. Man, I remember one time Ravi, he gave me this song called Between Lines. It's like, man, I was just like so afraid to play that song because it was just like it changed meters everywhere. So I'm like, oh man, like how am I gonna do this? And I remember for many months I never used to play a solo. I don't think I used to play a solo on that at the beginning, until I figure out like because I was looking at it like with all the odd
Yeah,
meters, but then I started looking at the whole song. Like for example, like if you erase all the odd meters and then you're just looking at the song,
phrases
it
kind of.
sounds
Yeah,
a lot more. Yeah, it's phrases and it sounds more natural that way. So I started like listening to it like that, and then it kind of like erased all that, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah,
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, like because you can't play music like that,
no,
You
yeah,
can't be counting. So when I started actually just feeling the music, that's when it kind of like opened up for me. It's like, oh wow, and I took out of my head that concept of odd meters. It's not odd meters. It's music.
it's music. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So just learned it. Just play with musicians that play that kind of music. Listen to it a lot. Maybe get
yeah.
some of that potato vodka that they make over there, like in that area. And just like just uh, just immerse yourself in it.
Yeah,
And that kind of worked out for me.
yeah. It's like I was once in Belgrade in Serbia, and a gypsy band was playing in seven. Gung,
Right,
gung, 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 gung.
right,
And I don't think they were even aware
right,
what
right,
they were doing going over, like ka 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 playing a darabuka and everything like next to it, or like some drums. And I was just like, man, they don't even know what they're doing. It's just like natural for them to extend that seven into 28 and just go four over it
right,
somehow, or
right.
or what. I was like, man,
I know exactly.
and I had to like write down everything at home, like analyzing, like you said, like 7 times 4, I can do that. I can do triplets within that. Like, and for them, it was just
Right.
like, yeah, we that's what we do. It's amazing.
Yeah, like there is a style of music in Venezuela called merengue venezolano, like Venezuelan merengue,
Mm,
which is traditional in 5 and 5/8.
really? Oh,
Yeah, and some people play it in 6/4, or like or like 2 bars of 3, and then some people play it in 11. They combine 1 bar of 5 and one
wow.
bar of 6. But truly, what, like, to me, I don't know what's happening is that like a lot of the people that used to play this kind of music, like when you listen to like old recordings, especially recordings that not studio recordings but like live recordings, they say, man, like, first of all, a lot of them weren't professional musicians.
Yeah,
So they were playing, and then and then at the same time they were like drinking. So a lot of the times you hear like a bar of 5 and then a bar of 6, and
yeah,
then something in between, but they're just playing. They're not really counting that stuff. So they maybe they slow down a little bit, and then like they
sure.
do. And so, but like we, like, professional musicians, they go and they try to figure out exactly what it is.
Yeah,
It's like you're never gonna figure that out, man. You just have to go down there and play with those guys, and drink whatever they're
yeah, yeah,
drinking, and
exactly.
then just
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
just be there, and then at some point you're gonna start hearing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
because it's like they slow down, and then they speed up a little bit, you know, and then maybe one guy is like slowing down and speeding up, and then the other guy is kind of like really playing, and then it creates this sense of like going like this. But
Kind
then
of, yeah.
it's, yeah, so
That's incredible. Yeah,
it's,
I love that. Yeah,
yeah,
but
that's one of the things
I
that
love
I've
that.
been like finding out as I get older. It's like it's like things are actually easier than what they are if
Look
you
like,
actually use your ears. You just open your ears, and then you just don't think about all the academic stuff. Just
yeah,
yeah. So then, like, what I do, I just have a balance in between the academic, because like, that's how my brain works. That's sometimes how I understand the stuff. I gotta figure out what it is. But then some of the stuff is just like, okay, I think it's that. It sounds to me like that. So
yeah,
and as my ears get more educated, I get more closer to the truth of what it is. But yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah. And uh, I just wanted to ask you, Luis, about your experience with Jack DeJohnette. Like, I think Universal Mind is like one of those records that I guess kind of put you in the next league. I don't know, maybe like also, you know, worldwide even more. And how was your experience with Jack, and how did you guys hook up? I guess through Ravi,
Yeah, it
but
was
like,
through Ravi. Like, we I think, like, I have met Jack like on the road. Like, I was with Ravi, and he introduced me to him. Like, I think a couple of times we played right before Jack. But I mean, I've knew of him for
Oh,
a
sure.
long
Yeah,
time.
sure.
Like even when I was in Venezuela, must have been like 17. The first time that I heard that recording, Bill Evans at the no, the first recording that I heard of with Jack was Standards Volume 2
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
by Keith Jarrett, and then I was like, man, like I didn't understand what was happening. I was like, wow. But I kept listening to the recording and listening to the recording and listening. And then at some point, it would just say, oh, wow, this is like really, really, really killing, man.
Yeah.
And then I heard Bill Evans at the Montreux Jazz Festival. And that was just like, oh my God, like, who's this guy, Jack DeJohnette? So I started buying everything that had Jack
Oh, sure.
DeJohnette on it. So I think I found on the street, like one of those guys that be selling stuff on the street in Venezuela, a recording by Joe Farrell
Yeah.
with I think Dave Holland and Jack, and I forget who else is on that. But it's a CTI recording, I think, from like around 1970.
Yeah.
I gotta
Maybe
look
could.
at the name of the name of the recording again. And I bought that, and then then I went to a store and I found this recording, Moon Germs, and I remember like saving all my money and I got it. And man, from the beginning that I heard that recording, at the beginning, it starts kind of like funk a little bit. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, man, it's fun because I wanted to hear it straight ahead. But then when it switches to straight ahead, I was just like, whoa,
Yeah.
this
It's
is so
killing
great.
me. Yeah.
So I've been listening to him for a long time, and then all the stuff with Miles,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. So fast forward when we're doing the recording, we had never played together, but we had spoken.
So just in the studio, you met kind of, or?
Yeah, like
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, we have spoken on the phone, and then
Okay.
I see him, like
Yeah.
in
In the
passing, But then the first real interaction that I had with him was actually at the studio. So we start recording, and he's playing, he's Jack, it's like I'm like, oh wow, but he was playing kind of like not safe, but it's like not what I was expecting,
Okay.
So, but I'm like, man, like I'm so glad that he's here. So then I think we might have done like 2 or 3 songs. We took a little break, and then I went into the booth, into the drum booth, just to like thank him and say, man, Jack, it's so great to have you here, blah blah blah. And then I started listening to I started telling him about these recordings that I had as a kid, and he was really surprised, man. And he was like, "Oh man, really? You listen to that stuff?" He's like, "Yeah, man. Like Good Germs,
Oh, man.
and all those recordings, man." And so I told him, I said, "Man, like, do your thing. Don't worry about me. Just say, like, I know, like how you play, and I really love that stuff." And then, man, we started playing again. It was a whoa, like a difference from like. And then he was telling me, he said, like it's good. Like, he told me, he said, man, it's good for me that because now I feel free to play how I like what I would normally do, because he's a professional guy, so he's
Oh,
gonna
sure.
come and do the recording and then just play. But I was just like, no, man, do your thing, just do your thing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then I think we had to like re-record some of the other songs because man, like he was playing like he opened up like, oh wow,
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think he really enjoyed that recording. And then we kind of had like a hookup, like some of the hits and some of the
Did you
stuff.
play some gigs with that trio, or?
No,
Actually,
we never
no, right?
did.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Unfortunately, we never did.
Yeah.
At some point we could have played a gig and then something happened, I
Mm.
mean, it's hard to
Oh,
like do
sure.
something like
He's
that
yeah.
to unless you like just like like financially you're
Yeah, I
able
know
to
it. I know
you know.
it.
But
Yeah. Amazing, man. Yeah.
but yeah, no, unfortunately we never got to do any gigs. And then I think at some point he actually sent me the book for his band just to like just in case if his pianist couldn't make it. But um like it never really happened.
Yeah, but
Which is
still,
cool.
already this is, it's like,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
also I'm with that recording. Something that is actually really good is that um, I mean, I'm just gonna say it. Like Ravi kind of like mixed that recording, so and he had a lot to say with the input. You know, a lot of
Okay.
input about how the general uh, sound of the recording, especially the drums. So I remember he took a lot of time,
Yeah, it's beautiful sounding.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
mixing the drums. So the result is like, man, the drums on that particular recording, they sound so great. And then that with the fact that Jack was playing like so amazingly on it,
Yeah.
yeah, we got a lot of like really good reviews about that, you know.
Yeah. It's because, I have some records. I was like you, I bought all the records, with Jack or with Abercrombie or with Dave Holland, when you start. uh, And there are some recordings with Jack, let's say, those dream rhythm sections that people hired, like Dave Holland and Jack DeJohnette, or I will not name them who they played for, but like, you put on a record the piano trio, and it's like, well, yeah, like you said, it's Jack on drums and Dave on bass, but it's not them. It's they did
Right.
they
It
did
sounds
that.
like yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
it's great still, but it's not.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So with yours record, it's just like, man, it's
Yeah, no,
killing.
I just, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I listen to that recording like from time to time. It's like,
Yeah,
wow, man,
it's nice,
really,
right?
really.
Yeah, it's
And
beautiful.
it's funny because I also wanted like one of those Jack DeJohnette solos, you know, like I think on the last tune, like one of those like where he just goes crazy.
Yeah,
And man, like he did it. There's one of those solos that he was just like, man, like he
it's
just
beautiful. Yeah.
did his thing, you know, like and it was so amazing also to watch him, you know, like play
Oh man,
because he
sure.
was totally into it, like leaning back on the drums and you know, like all sweaty. It's really great, you know.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
That's amazing. Yeah,
yeah. And
Luis.
then you know when I'm not I don't play
Yeah,
drums,
sure.
but you know when
Oh,
sometimes I play drums, you know, like I try to sound like Jack, you know. That's what I hear, you know,
everyone
Jack.
does, man. It's like, yeah, it's just no, but I wanted to also to ask you about, there's so many things you've done, but not to take so much of your time, about your experience with Henry Threadgill. He's, one of my all-time favorite composers, and it's such a unique record, that double up plays double up. And speaking again of kind of two rhythm sections, or how should I put it, or two
Yeah,
pianists, or
yeah.
like how was your experience with Henry, and how did that connection begin?
Yeah, it's funny because like Henry's one of those guys that I actually met through a friend of ours, like when I first came to New York. I think I might have come from the airport, and my friend was like, like, "Hey man, let's go to Henry Threadgill's
Oh man.
house," and I still had a bag with me, you know. So I went to the East Village and I met him, and he was really cool, you know. So Henry recommended me for like so many gigs, you know. One of them was really amazing with man, I'm forgetting the name of the conductor. He used to conduct
Butch Morris, or no?
with Butch Morris.
Yeah.
Yeah, he recommended me with Butch Morris, and then you know, like man, like that was one of the most amazing experiences in my life. You know,
Can imagine.
like
Yeah.
playing with Butch, and then eventually, you know, like I played with Henry with in some other bands. You know, some other you know we both were Simon, but when he finally called me to do this project with the three pianos, it was so amazing for myself. You know, it's like
Yeah.
wow, you know, like that. First of all, three pianos, you know, and then you kind of
Very,
have to learn Henry's system of
yeah,
music.
exactly. Yeah.
You know, with all the numbers, just to actually really make it sound, you know.
Organic.
So I can I studied some of it, but I you know like to actually really master that you gotta that takes many years, you know. So I did kind of like a combination of like the stuff that he was, you know, like his system, and then some of my own stuff, like the way I heard that music, you know. But that was amazing, you know. And with that group, we actually did some gigs, you know.
Really? Oh man. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really.
Well, it might have been one gig, but we played at the Kennedy Center in Washington D.C.
Mm.
That's the thing that when you do a gig with Henry, like he makes sure that the all the conditions are there, you know.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like that's why you don't really play that much with him because you know, like when he do you do a gig with him, it's like, okay, this is great, that's how all gigs should be.
Yeah.
But at least we got to do that concert at the Kennedy Center. And it was so just like really really great just to go a little bit into his mind and the way he like I never knew it was like that. It's funny because right now I'm looking from here, I'm looking at the music of that project. I'm looking
Oh,
at the
really?
from
Oh, man, you should make like a
yeah,
couple
like
of pictures of that. I would love to study that. No.
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, I can just basically just grab it really
Oh,
quick.
man.
Yeah, like I still have it in the folder. Like it says every Threadgill, like there you
Ooh, that's so
go.
beautiful, man.
Yeah, and then this stuff is let me see what we have here. Yeah, so like let me see if I open. Yeah, like kind of looks like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's amazing. Yeah. Such a unique
yeah,
concept. It's
yeah, like the way he writes the chords and everything.
yeah.
And also, one thing that I also like check out this solo form. I had to like kind of like write my own
Shit, man.
page.
Oh,
Like
fuck.
it kind of looks like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
man. Lord.
yeah.
Okay.
So and then one of the things that I actually really really liked about his concept is that like like he opens the songs. Like it's not like a set solo form. Sometimes he goes like, okay, let's do the solos from here to here, and then if he goes like this, that means like elongate. And then the elongate meaning like if you're playing like I think it's like if you're playing like a I don't know, like a 3/4 bar, then it'll be a 6/4 bar,
Yeah.
kind of like that, like twice as, and then um like the sections that were open weren't open like exactly from like the beginning of the bar to the end of another bar. It could be like the repetition could be in the middle of the bar. So it could be like, okay, let's do your solo from like the second beat of this bar, and then let's finish on like I don't know, like if you're playing like 1 2 3 4, like you're gonna finish on the end of three or something, like 1 2 that like, so it'll be five beats
Yeah.
instead of being like 4/4, it would be like 5/8.
5/8. Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, like a form that was like 4/4 4/4 4/4, it would be like 3/4 4/4 5/8. So then you would practice on that. It's like, okay, cool, I think I got it. And then when you get to the next rehearsal, you say, no, we're not doing the solos there. Let's do it some different.
Oh, shit.
Basically, like the way he
That's amazing.
rehearses is more kind of like just to hear how the music sounds and opening and stuff. He's not actually rehearsing
The
like in terms
hats
of the
or yeah.
solos. Yeah, it's not rehearsing. He's not really rehearsing like technical stuff. He's rehearsing like the interactions between the musicians and like how you respond to like different situations.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. It's more like a philosophical kind of way to me.
Which kind of makes
Like
sense. Yeah. I mean, that's where the
yeah,
music
so
is.
so at some point I kind of like it's like, okay, you cannot be really try to be like, okay, I'm gonna practice this. This is what he told me. No, it's just like just be open. It could be anywhere. Just be open and then just know how to like how to manage playing
Yeah.
and like that kind of stuff. And what
That's
basically what
amazing.
you gotta do is like two things happen. It's that you cannot really play preconceived stuff, which I think is basically his idea. He doesn't want you to play any stuff that you practiced.
Licks or whatever.
And
Yeah.
then at the same time, you gotta kind of like leave a lot of space and open your ears. Yeah, you cannot because like, it's not gonna work out. And if you actually try to do some of that stuff, it's gonna be like
Yeah.
it's not. So like he'd rather have you like play a couple of notes and leave a space and find out where the one is and then keep going. And even if you like kind of like mess it up here, like try to keep it going and then resolve the phrase, kind of like that.
Yeah. That's
And
yeah.
then
Amazing.
using his like his method, like this is another book that he gave me like that.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's a that one. It looks like code, like that kind of thing.
Oh shit, man. Jesus.
So it's all
Okay.
the primes and all the harmonics that he
Yeah,
uses and stuff. Oh, and
that's
then I found
incredible.
like this is
That's incredible.
yeah. I think this is actually. I think this is yeah. This is like when we played
Oh yeah, the Kennedy. Yeah,
at the Kennedy Center. Yeah,
that's amazing.
so
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah. So everything is in that folder right there. Like I can just look at it.
That's so beautiful, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, cool. Well, amazing. Yeah,
That's another thing, man. I like playing. I like playing I like playing bebop and that kind of stuff. But I also like playing with like people like Henry Threadgill, people like.
yeah.
I've been playing lately a lot with Barry Atchell.
Really? I didn't know
the
that. Wow.
drummer.
In trio or
Oh yeah.
who was on bass?
Sometimes trios, sometimes quartet with Joe Fonda.
Really? I didn't know. Wow. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, and that's something that, man, is to me.
I love
Also,
Barry.
when I was to
love Barry.
Venezuela, I used to have this recording called Circle, like it's a chicoria.
Yeah. With Barry. Yeah. I love
Oh
that.
yeah. I used to listen to that recording a lot too.
That's a killing record. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember a friend of mine. It was the recording belonged to a friend of mine from college. So we used to come out of college and then go listen to that recording.
That's amazing. Yeah. I love it. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow. Well, I hope you guys record something. Would be nice to hear you in that.
Yeah, I think that's in the works.
Oh, you're beautiful.
Yeah,
man.
that's in the works.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing something with that group.
Fantastic.
And that again, that's one of those things that my teacher, like kind of like shape my brain into, just like be open.
Yeah.
Just be open.
Yeah.
So I like, like playing, like straight ahead stuff, like bebop, and then I play some crazy Latin music with Miguel, if you can't call it that, and then I just
That's
go
so
to
beautiful,
something more like M-bass, with David Gilmour or something.
Yeah, I love that
And
stuff.
more
Also.
then more avant-garde with these guys, and then, just music, man.
Yeah.
As long as it sounds good, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. And then if you get paid for it, man,
that's exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like I just went to, I was just on tour with this pop singer in Venezuela that I used to play with when I was say 19 or 18. Now he moved to the United States, and then he's been like doing his thing. And then, just I still remember all that music, so I just go and I play with him, and
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's just
That's
pop,
so cool.
just like you don't have to play all that crazy stuff. Just play the music, and
That's
travel,
beautiful.
get paid.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, it is great, man. I love it. It's all
Amazing.
music, man. It's all music.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great, Luis. Well, thanks for sharing some of these thoughts, man. I hope to catch you in Europe soon. If you're in Europe, please drop me a line. I live like 2 hours.